Trump administration continues to take a hard-line stance on immigration. Today, the Justice Department overturned a rule allowing domestic violence victims to seek asylum in the U.S.
This comes amid reports that the administration's Get Tough approach continues to separate immigrant children from their parents. Team 12's Joe Dana verifies what's actually happening at the border with these children. Joe?
You know, there's so much happening right now. This we know. There is a major shakeup on immigration policy on many fronts, and it is causing more kids to be separated from their parents. There is no policy declaring that every family entering the U.S. border has to be separated. But 12 News can verify that families who otherwise may not have been separated under the Obama administration are today. It's the result of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance approach, prosecuting all adults who enter the country illegally.
We need legality and integrity in our immigration system.
From October 2017 to mid-April, before the new prosecution strategy officially went into effect, more than 700 children were reportedly separated from their parents at the border. The federal government has not released the figures from May, but those who work on immigration cases have observed a large increase in the number of children taken away. They are designated as unaccompanied minors, and the government tries to connect them to family members who are already in the U.S. Until then, the kids wait in shelters or are sent to federally contracted foster homes, often without parents being told exactly where they are. Attorneys at the border say this is causing anguish with parents. It's traumatizing kids. And when you read these court affidavits, there are some heartbreaking stories about kids as young as 4 and 5 not able to see or even communicate with their moms and dads who are in federal detention. So there are questions about whether these prosecutions are being done in a humane way, guys.
No easy answers, Joe, but what about families that turn themselves in at the border for, say, asylum? Are they being separated as well?
Well, so the ACLU is saying yes, and they say there are actually hundreds of cases of what they call this inhumane practice, and it's designed to scare other families from seeking refuge in the U.S. But you think about, for those who have a sincere case, who come here because they truly are escaping violence, critics say this only extends the nightmare. They get to the border and then they're ripped away from their child.
It becomes a new nightmare
for an unknown amount of time. So that's one reason why this is controversial right now.
All right, Joe, thanks.